Okay, so we started with this graph, and I told them that was exponential growth. And in case you want to know, that would be the equation y equals 3 to the x. What do you think it would have looked like if I would have said, I want you to horizontally reflect it, so we're going to put a -1 up in the power. Do you get that -1 would actually turn it into y equals 1/3 to the x? That would have looked like that. How many of you, before we started the video, knew that it would look something like that? Raise your hand if you had that. Okay, cool. Do you get one of them is exponentially growing as you go from left to right, and the other one is exponential decay. It's going down, 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 down. But what both of them aren't going to do, neither one of them is going to touch this line. Why? What on earth, math-wise, is making it so that neither one of those guys, neither 3 to the x or 1/3 to the x, neither one of them is going to touch 0? Well, it comes down to this. There's no power you can put it to. You know, like if we put this to a power, there is no power you can put it to that will make it equal 0. Take the number 3, put it to any power you want, and you can't make it 0. So that's why there's an asymptote that runs that way. And take the number 1/3 and put it to any power you want. You can make it really small, but you can't make it 0 and you can't make it negative. You can't make it either one. That's why there's an asymptote. It won't cross that line. Okay, cool. Now the next thing I need you to remember to be able to graph these things well is, do you remember back to when life was easy and it was like a parabola and then you'd have like a -4, and you remember that we could do things like, oh, we're going to put a negative inside here and a -4 out there. Do you remember those kind of moves and flips and stuff? All right, so this one, the one I just wrote, you'd have to use, this is your word bank. To do this correctly, I want you to tell me what happened here and what happened here. And if you don't use the word horizontal or vertical, you're doing it wrong. If you don't use one of the words stretch or shrink, you're doing it wrong. And if you don't use the words up or down, you're doing it wrong. Okay? So what are these two changes? The official words you're supposed to say. I'm going to pause for a second. This is a blast from the past that you're going to have to know to be able to do the new graphs, because they're going to get moved and stretched and all that stuff. All right, oh, there's one more word that I didn't say that is also involved. And I want to do one more thing to it. I'm going to put a 7 out in front of it. I know, just changed the problem, but it didn't change the other two things. It just added one more thing. So all three of these things, what is the 7 called? What is that negative on the inside called? And what is that -4 on the outside called? And before I set you completely free to do this, I want to remind you of HIVO. Some of you may never have heard this. Horizontal on the inside, vertical on the outside. All right, I'm going to pause while you try to remember the exact way to say those 3 changes. All right, here's the official names. That 7 out in the front is a vertical stretch. BFO, what does that mean? By a factor of 7. Vertical stretch by a factor of 7. The negative on the inside, that is a horizontal reflect. And last but not least, that -4 is a down 4. Any questions on those? Those are really critical. Hopefully that little 2 minutes we spent on it is useful, because you'll have problems that are like this. And you'll have to know, well, it's decay because it's using a 1/2 to a power. And it's been vertically stretched and moved down 5. And what's that 1? Just ask the kid next to you, what do you think the 1 is? The whole graph got moved. Just the 1. See, the question is that 1 on the inside or the outside? Talk to that kid next to you. Yes.
Would this be decay or growth? Because I thought
Decay.
parentheses you split it around.
Decay. If it's a whole number, like 2 or 3 or 4, that's growth. If it's a fraction, then it's decay.
But do you flip in parentheses? Do you do opposites?
No, only if you put it to the -1 power. -1 power flips it. Okay, all right. So final answers. This was vertical stretch factor 3. This is that 1/2 is telling you it's decay. This is left 1. Who had that correct? Why is that the hardest one? Because intuitively, you should be thinking, moving 1 plus 1 should be 1 to the right. But when you're on the inside, it always goes the opposite way as you would think. So if you were thinking 1 to the right, I get it, but you got to fight that because on the inside, it's always the opposite of what you would think. And then this last thing is down 5. Question? The 1/2 would not be a horizontal stretch because it's the base of this whole thing. So let's go back to the 2 that we started with. 3 to the x, that was growth. 1/2 to the x, that's decay. Now if I put another 1/2 on the inside, that would be different. Well, we won't do that to you because I got to get so complicated. But I get what you were thinking. You were thinking it was on the inside, but the inside of this function is actually not in there. The inside of this function is up here. That's the inside. Okay? All right. So, back to this. This seems incredibly complicated, but I can tell you that the asymptote would have been at 0. They always start at 0, but it's just been moved somewhere. Talk to the kid next to you. Where has the asymptote been moved? Where has the asymptote been moved? Do you remember that the asymptote was going at right along at 0? But then it gets moved down 5. The other things don't even touch the asymptote. All right. That number will tell you where the asymptote moved. So what's the answer? Where'd the asymptote move? Down 5. So here's my new asymptote. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do. And then this would be like way harder than anything that we'd have on the test. But let me just show you how easy it would be. I would make an XY chart. I would stick in any numbers I want, and this is the key skill, right here, right here. Can you stick a 1 into this? Now, 1 actually kind of sucks, because if I put a 1 in there, then I'm doing 1/2 squared, which isn't impossible, but it's kind of going to be a pain. So I wouldn't pick 1. You get to pick what to put in. So I bet you'll figure out why I would pick -1. -1 will be great to put in, since I get to pick. I'm going to put in -1. Can you figure out the answer? See, there's kids that know how to do this and kids that don't. And the kids that know how to do this by Thursday, the graphing will be easy. If you can find 3 points, everybody can graph 3 points. It's can you find 3 points? So please talk to the kid next to you. What happens when you put in -1?
What you get?
Just plug the minus one in there.
Okay. Now, I'm just trying to help you be focused and motivated here because would you agree that most kids on a hard test are going to make one dumb mistake? Is that reasonable to say? At least one dumb mistake? Okay. And if you're taking your test and you've got these 4 hard problems, right? If you've made one dumb mistake, you can still get an A. Do you get if you make another mistake, you're not going to get an A anymore? You haven't figured this out, it's true. Okay? So, if you made one dumb mistake in your hard problems, and now you also don't know how to graph this, now you're toast. Okay? So pay attention, because this is critical. If I put that -1 in, watch it track out. What's -1 plus 1? Well, it's 0. What's anything to the 0 power? 1. But that's just this part. This part is to the 0 power, so that part becomes 1. We still have a 3 here. 3 times the 1 is 3. And then the last thing I do is minus the 5. So I had 3 times the 1 made 3. Minus 5 is -2. Who had -1, -2? Nice. Okay. Now I'm going to put in another number. 0 isn't that bad. Let's put in 0. Right up here, we're putting a 0 in right there. Take a second. Now, I know some of you were in a class where they asked you to put a whole bunch of things around your chart, like adding this to the right side and multiplying that on the left side, and I don't do that. I think it's cleaner to just stick in 0 in the equation. See what you get. So it's critical skill that you have to be able to put 0 in the equation. So now I got 0 plus 1 is 1. What's 1/2 to the 1? Oh, that's pretty easy. It's 1/2. What's 3 times 1/2? Well, you can use a decimal. What's half of 3? 1.5. And then you have to take away 5. And if that's getting too much, remember, you will have a calculator. Couldn't just take 1.5 minus, sorry, yeah, 1.5 minus 5 on a calculator? Sure, you could do that on a calculator. But somebody in here is going to be able to do that in your head. It was 1.5 at last checked, and then we took away 5. So isn't that going to be -3.5? Does that sound right? Who had -3.5? Awesome. You know how to find points, and you're going to be fine on this test. Because once you find 3 points, you just graph them, and we already know the asymptote is just moved down 5. And anybody can draw a line and connect the dots. You've been doing it since you were probably 5, maybe 3. Connecting dots is easy, right? Okay. All right, let's find one more point. How about -2 is actually going to work out incredibly well. I'd like you to see -2 being put in and working really nice. Focus. Put -2 into this equation. This is the moment where you're deciding what your grade's going to be on Thursday. Because if you can master this, I think you can get an A. If this is beyond you because you can't find 3 points, -2 plus 1, you might think, oh, that sucks, it comes out to a negative. But -1 powers are awesome. They just take the fraction and they flip it over. So then the 1/2 to the -1 becomes 2. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 minus 5 is 1. Who had -2 comma 1? Nice. Now, I know you can all graph, so we're not going to do it right this second because I know you can graph. You graph those 3 points, you draw a line through them, and you get your asymptote right here. There we go. That's it. That's how you graph. All right, now, if all I cared about was teaching today's lesson and being able to just like go over there and do some work, I'd be done. But I know this next test has so many things that you got to remember that I really think I should take a few more minutes and review with you. So here's some stuff you're supposed to know so far. Let's see if the ACT test was today, or your test on Thursday was today. Would you know how to solve that? We had a whole worksheet on it. We've practiced it twice. The day I taught it and the day after I taught it. And here's the third time. Do you remember yet? Give you a hint. Make the bases the same. The base is n on both of them. So then the only question is n to the what? All right. would you agree that if they're like this, you subtract the powers, so therefore it's n to the 4 minus x? Who had figured that out? Who had that down? Fantastic. Okay, because from there it's super easy. That equals that. 4 minus x equals 5, and then it's just basic algebra to solve it. Subtract 4, multiply by -1, easy peasy. Okay, here's another one that last hour even, still a good 25% of the kids did not know how to solve that. It is so simple, but they forgot. I'll give you only one hint. You're putting it to a power to solve it. Now, I will admit, and I noticed this in other hours, and I'm noticing it today too because I'm looking at some papers, there's more than one way to do this and get the right answer. But I think this is the best way because I know it'll work on all problems that are like this. You put this to the power that makes this come out to 1 because x to the 1 is x, right? So you put it to not just the 1/2 power, you put it to the negative 1/2 power on both sides. Do you get that that will make this into 1, and then it's x to the 1, and then it's just x? All right, and then this square root of 4 is 2. This negative 1 power flips it 1/2. And again, there's more than one way to do it. But I know the way that I just showed you is going to be the way I would want you to do it on the test, and the way I know it would work on the test. All right, here's another one. I think this was actually harder for them than the one we just did. Here's your pro tip. Figure out what power to put it to. If you put it to the right power, the x will become a 1. Poof, all at once. All right. If you're stuck, it's probably because you don't know that that's x to the 2/3 power right now. I didn't put it to the 2/3. I just rewrote this like this. And I know some of you did that because I looked on your papers, your virtual paper. That was smart. Because now it'll be easy to put it to the right power to solve it. This is definitely counterintuitive. Because most kids, if they're just asked, what power do you think that is? They'd say it's to the power of 3/2. But it's not. It's backwards from that. And the way I told you that would help you remember it is I said the roots are on the bottom, just like in plants. So that 3 is the root. See, look, you know that the 3 is the root. So x to the 2/3, and then you put it to the 3/2. Go ahead and finish this one. And I'll show you why I think this is one of your hardest tests. Compare with the kid next to you, and I bet you there's a 50-50 chance they're wrong. You might not even know they're wrong, because you might be wrong too. Yes.
You're right.
Let's finish. Let's do this question first. I don't want to change topics right this second. All right. So, did you catch that there is a root on both sides? That's an even root and therefore absolute value. Some of you caught that. Some of you didn't. Who caught it? Be honest. Nice. That's like 8 people. So easy to forget, isn't it? Square root of 25 is 5. 5 to the 3rd is 125. And yes, I think I forgot that on the last problem. I wasn't going to forget it on this problem because I kind of saw it coming. But answer on this one is 25 and negative 125. But somebody just mentioned, hey, Mr. Server, on the last problem, didn't you also do that? And yes, we should have had absolute values. And so yes, there should have been 2 answers on the last question. I made my dumb mistake. Everybody's going to make a dumb mistake in this test. So you can't afford to have things you don't know going into this test because you're going to make a dumb mistake. There's so many complicated little algebra things to do. So if you also don't know how to do like a fraction power like this, if there's things you don't know and you're going to make dumb mistakes, there's going to be a whole lot of C's and D's on this test. Do you know this one? I know how to do these. Open YouTube. We're almost done. Stay with me for we have literally one more practice problem. And you'll have a whole bunch of work time. Brody, start by doing the square root and tell me what to do.
You get 5.
Yep, square root of 25 is 5, and then what? 5 to the third is 125, then what?
Flip it.
Yes, 1 over 125. Who had that one right? Okay. Now, there's so many things for you to know on this next test. There's one more. 4ab to the third times 2ab in parentheses to the negative 2. And I gave the example when we were learning this, we had a whole worksheet full of them, that some of these exponents are not happy where they are. So you move them to the other side of the fraction and make them happy exponents. Like I gave the example of the condo in Florida. And I keep telling myself, if it's a 2-level condo, get the second floor. For a lot of different reasons. Yes?
Can I use the bathroom?
How about this? You tell me the first step.
You move the 2ab to the bottom of the fraction.
What's wrong with what I just wrote?
It's 2, not negative.
It's to the power of 2. You are correct. And as long as that hub pass says yes, I'll say yes. Okay, so you got that move down there. There's still a good chance you're going to mess up. Would you please compare this to the kid next to you? The answer is simple fraction. Oh,
Can't go.
it says you can only create one every 60 minutes. That must mean that at some point earlier, like in the last hour. Did you already do it in this hour?
No. Oh, I did it first hour.
Yeah. Are you desperate?
No, it's fine.
All right. Okay, so I'm hoping you knew that this 2 got squared and made a 4 on the bottom, which cancels the 4 on the top. So the numbers are all gone. There's no more 4 on the top because it canceled with the 4 on the bottom. And then you'd have an ab to the third, and then you'd have an a squared b squared because that a has to get squared. Everything in here has to get squared. And then that simplifies down to just a b on the top and an a on the bottom. Who had b over a for your final answer? Good job. Okay, now let's start that worksheet together. It's kind of weird because it's like skipping around on which problems you should do and skip. So find the worksheet. We are doing number 1, so at least that's easy. But let's cross off the ones you don't have to do. So you're doing number 1, you're skipping number 2. You're doing number 3, you're skipping number 4. Look at number 5. There's a red and a blue. In the title of the worksheet, It says to do 5 what? Does it say to do 5 red or 5 blue? 5 red. Okay. So cross off 5 blue. It's just too complicated. 0 kids were getting it last hour, and we don't need you to, like, it's too much in one day. So we're just going to cross off the 5 blue. And then on number 6, you're going to do the blue one and skip the red one. All right. Now remember, there's an answer key. You can go look at the key. So I'm not going to do too much to help you here, except I would like to start on number 1 because it's a graph. The whole topic was, can you graph? So let's do it together. Andrew, would you read me that? Y equals
Parentheses 3,
to the,
x minus 2,
and then what?
minus 6.
Minus 6?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So all you really need is an XY chart and the asymptote. Before we even start, the asymptote has been moved. Normally it goes across right at 0, but it's been moved down 6. Did you know that I was going to say down 6? All right, this tells you where the asymptote is moved. So if you're going to graph this thing, you may as well go down 6 and put a dotted line across there, 6 down. All right, next thing you got to do is just find 3 points. Now again, you're going to look, if you look at the key, you're going to see that they do it a different way than me. I think it's so much easier to just stick 1 in and see what you get. You don't have to do a complicated thing where you start with parent points and then you move them all this way and you stretch them all that way. It's just so much easier. Just put a 1 in. See what you get. So if I put in a 1, what's 1 minus 2? It's negative 1. Don't be scared of that. 3 to the negative 1 is 1/3. Now, if you need to, at that point, use a calculator to take 1/3 minus 6. I understand, and the calculator will be allowed in the test. So what's 1/3 minus 6? I can do it. If I can do it, some of you can do it. 1/3 minus 6. It's going to be negative, right? Negative 5, and who can say it if you know it? 5 2/3. Very good. And if you're like, ooh, that's going to be tricky to graph. Well, yeah, there's going to be some tricky ones to graph. You're in honors. It's not incredibly easy. They aren't all just whole numbers. All right, now we're going to put in another number. But there's something that would be nicer than 1. What do you think? 3 works really nice, and 2 works really nice. And if I put in a 2, you just go 2 minus 2 is 0, 3 to the 0, and you should know what that is. And then you take away 6. All right. And once you've got these 3 points, you just graph them. Draw a line through them. You've been connecting dots since you were like 4. Okay, so I think you can do this. If you can get these points right here, you're good. And if you can't, you should walk up and ask me for some help. I'll coach you through it. Because maybe that's going to be the thing that gets you on this next test. All right, that's all I got for you for today.